Oil and gas together account for nearly 60% of global primary energy demand, and the evolution of the sector is clearly right at the centre of the energy transition. Some argue that the best approach for financial institutions is simply to divest oil and gas from their portfolios. But this in itself does not lead to real decarbonisation. Oil and gas firms have the potential to play a key role themselves, and financial services firms can play a key role likewise in supporting that role and financing the transition investment required. Downstream Scope 3 emissions, i.e. the emissions associated with combustion of the fuels, represent the vast majority of the warming impact of oil and gas, accounting for 70 to 90% of life cycle emissions from oil and 60 to 85% of those from gas. But emissions from Scope 1 and Scope 2, i.e. the production and extraction of fuels, are also very material, particularly as the emission of methane is the largest contributor to this. Because methane has a very high short-term warming potential, 80 times that of carbon dioxide in the first 20 years, and also, unlike carbon dioxide, breaks down in the atmosphere over a similar time frame, there is a major benefit in reducing methane emissions fast in the next decade. In the area of Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions, the key measures that are needed are about efficiency, electrification, and critically, methane emissions reduction. This is an area of well-established solutions, as well as growing use of innovative sensing and detection technologies, and in many cases can be achieved at net zero cost, given the benefit of improved efficiency or reduction in losses. This includes leak detection and repair, and replacing and upgrading equipment such as pumps and compressors. Addressing downstream Scope 3 requires a more fundamental strategic realignment of oil and gas businesses, combined with reducing the production of fossil fuels themselves. Upstream, this could include developing renewables businesses and investing in wind and solar generation and biomass. Midstream, there is the opportunity for hydrogen to become a critical energy carrier, particularly to support decarbonisation in hard-to-abate sectors such as industry and heavy transport. Hydrogen can be produced with low carbon emissions through electrolysis from renewable electricity, or through steam methane reformation of natural gas in combination with carbon capture and storage. And there's also the opportunity for oil and gas companies to build businesses in the transport and trading of hydrogen in what could ultimately be a major global commodity. And downstream, there is the opportunity to invest to decarbonise downstream processing, such as carbon capture and storage for industrial processes, or to support the shift needed from fossil fuels to other energy vectors, such as rolling out electric vehicle charging infrastructure or smart home technologies to drive efficiency, localised generation and storage, and low-carbon heating. Navigating these opportunities requires bringing together an understanding of the markets, the technologies, the policy frameworks, and counterparty strategies and plans, and internally, measurement and metrics to assess projects within a framework. There are many different strategic pathways for oil and gas companies, ranging from a focus on reducing Scope 1 and 2 emissions and aiming to be an efficient, low-cost operator in a declining market, transitioning to renewables, or focusing on decarbonising the fuels themselves. It is important to understand the maturity of the technologies and also the drivers for commercial viability, which will include techno-economic fundamentals, but also in many cases, the policy incentives that support deployment during a scale-up phase. And internally, governance and processes to test and assess the validity of investment opportunities in relation to their emissions reduction benefits, whether against standard green or sustainable taxonomies, or against internal frameworks and guidelines assessing the alignment of measures with net zero targets.